Hello, everyone. John McElroy here at Autoline. We're trying something new here. We're going to call it Ask Autoline. I'm going to throw out a topic. You guys can ask questions if you'd like. We'll see where the whole conversation goes. But you probably noticed with how we tweeted out what we're going to be doing here today. Wanted to talk about Johan Nysschen and why he's probably out at Cadillac. I got to tell you, I've known Johan a long time, many years, going back to his days at Audi here in the U.S., but it was kind of a shock to see him go. Here's why I think he's gone. Even though Johan delivered all-time record sales for Cadillac, GM's board of directors decided that they needed somebody else in charge of the brand. One thing that you've got to remember is that most of Cadillac sales are now in China. But, you know, I think the feeling is anyone can sell anything in China. Even more importantly, from a financial standpoint, is that GM has to turn over half of its profits to its Chinese partners. So even though it sells more cars in China, the U.S. market is its most important market. This is where it makes most of the money. And in the U.S. market, Cadillac hasn't really done too well from a sales standpoint since Johan took over. When he came on board in mid-2014, Cadillac had sold 182,000 vehicles the year before in the U.S. market. Last year, it sold 156,000. So Cadillac sales have gone down while Johan was in charge, even though the U.S. market grew and grew a lot. In fact, just about every other luxury brand increased its sales, with the exception of BMW. Perhaps more importantly is Audi, which Johan used to run, now sells way more than Cadillac. And Infiniti, which was the job he had before he came to Cadillac, surpassed Cadillac in sales at the end of last year, and now the gap is only growing. So that probably did not look too good to the GM board. And that's not to say Johan didn't achieve a lot. He did do a lot of good things. Transaction prices at Cadillac are up a lot. I want to say like $5,000 to $6,000 per vehicle sold. He improved their customer satisfaction scores. He improved a whole lot of customer service. He was getting them into this kind of lease payment where you can have all different kinds of different vehicles. And now that's getting copied by a number of other brands. Even so, I think that what GM's board is looking for right now is they want to see somebody moving metal. I believe that's why they put Steve Carlisle in charge of Cadillac. He had been running GM of Canada, and Steve took GM to #1 in Canada. I think that GM now wants to see Cadillac sell a whole lot more vehicles in the American market. Okay, so Bryant Monroe wrote in to ask, how's Lincoln going in China? Lincoln's doing really well. They're growing really fast, but they're way behind. I mean, even though they're growing exponentially, they've got a long way to go. They've got to open a lot more dealerships in China before they can get anything. Shiny Baldy says, is it Johan's fault that GM fundamentally has limited appeal for younger customers with a little more money? Yeah, I think it's a brand image thing. You know, still today, if you pull up in your country club with everybody else with their BMWs and Mercedes and Audis, and you pull up in a Cadillac, unless it's a V series, they might ask you, why'd you buy the Cadillac? You know, if you pull up in any of the German brands, nobody asks you any question, why did you buy that car? And like I said, if you're in a V-Series Cadillac, that's going to go pretty good too. Let's see. Kabak Zoltan, any information about the upcoming Dyson cars? No. Dyson is not saying a word about it. All we know is that they're working on an electric car. We know that they bought a Michigan-based battery company called SACD3 that makes solid-state batteries. That could be a transformational battery for EVs. So it'll be cool to see what Dyson actually does come out with and how it can make the transition from making vacuum cleaners to building automobiles. But it's pretty exciting technology that they plan to bring to the market. Let's see. 1,000 foot-pounds. Is Toyota going to release a new M2 anytime soon? Yeah, they are. They're working on, well, I don't know if it's an M2. We'll see what they actually call the car, but they've got a joint development with BMW. They're both going to be coming out with a sports car. And be cool to see Toyota get back into the sports car business. And these days, you got to split the costs. This is why Mazda went with Fiat to split the costs on the MX-5. And even Toyota and BMW had to join together to figure out how to make this kind of car profitable. Let's see. 1,000-pound feet says he's got a Gen 2 and would love to see a new one. Yeah, I think we all would. Okay, Sub GR 77. When are we going to find out what manufacturers are going to use that opposed piston engine? Great question. You know, you probably saw when we had David Johnson from Acadi's Engine on the show. Sounds like they're getting really close. He did announce several manufacturers, but not a major OEM. I'm waiting to hear what could be coming. I'll tell you, I wouldn't even be surprised if somebody like General Motors stepped up to the plate to get this opposed piston engine in its pickup trucks. Because remember, Acadi's is claiming 37 miles to the gallon combined in an F-150 with that engine. That's going to be pretty wild to see. And thank you. I'm glad you liked it. Let's see. We got some other comments that we pulled off our website about Johan. Getting back to that topic for the moment. Robert Smith says, tell me, what did Johan really do besides try to make Cadillac's naming system work like Audi's and Infinity's, the two places he previously worked? Well, like I said, he got Cadillac's transaction prices up by a lot. What I mean by that is Cadillac is now getting an average of $5,000 to $6,000 per vehicle on every single vehicle that it sells. And that's quite an accomplishment. That's really saying something. Let's see. Bryant Monroe asks, do you think Jim Hackett will be able to speed up the process, including the launches in vehicles in North America? Because in my opinion, he says, the board's very slow with their new product programs. And yeah, I agree with that. But, you know, you can't accelerate these things. Tesla tried it. It was a disaster. Take your time, do it right. Figure out the right products to bring out to the market. It's far better to bring out the right product a little bit slowly than it is to rush to the market with a bad product. Let's see here. Shiny Baldy's back to say Honda seems to have turned Acura around by fixing their questionable design language. Let's see how sales go. I agree. I think their design language is getting better. We'll see if the sales are there to reflect that. Chris says, Kirk says, please make Sandy's shop tour live. Hey, I think we're going to have Sandy back sooner than we had anticipated. You know, he's supposed to finish up his Tesla teardown report, come up with all those conclusions sometime around mid-May, maybe the end of May. Sometime after that, we'll definitely get him back on the show. 1,000 Foot-Pound says, what would Peter D. ever return? Boy, this is jumping around on me. Would Peter D. ever return to After Hours? Wait, you missed the show. Go back and look. He was here a couple of weeks ago. And you bet we'll have him back. Peter's a great guy. Everett Mish says, do you think the new Aviator platform lends itself to being used as a sedan, perhaps the next town car or suicide door Continental? Boy, that's a great thought. I love that idea. I think Lincoln should bring back the town car, and it should be fantastic. In fact, I wouldn't even do a mass production one. I'd do a hand-built car. Sell it for $300,000 or $400,000. You want to make a real halo car? Make it a halo car, not a mass manufactured one. More questions rolling in here. What's the latest news on Detroit Auto Show moving dates? You know, the latest news is maybe they're not going to move the date. You know, there had been talk of moving it to October, but that could conflict with the Paris Auto Show every other year. The Detroit Auto Show people are looking at the kind of media coverage that they're getting for the Detroit Auto Show in the dead of winter in Detroit in January. They're getting terrific media coverage. Some of the latest thought is maybe they're not going to move it at all. I wish they'd make a decision and come out and announce it. I'm sure they will, but it would eliminate all the uncertainty once they do that. Let's see. To the studio controller, there is some audio noise. Okay. She's nodding. Katie is sitting right next to me here monitoring that. Hanel Acevedo said, what triggered GM to deploy full fuel cell for real world testing in 2005? And why did they recently recruit Honda? Well, look, you talk to any of the R&D people in this business, and they don't believe electric battery cars are the future. They all believe that hydrogen fuel cell electric cars are the real future, but they're horrifically expensive. We need to build a hydrogen infrastructure before they can catch on. And that's why GM partnered with Honda. They both looked at the patents that they have. They discovered that they barely overlap. In fact, that if they could put their two patent portfolios together, they'd have something real there. And so they're going to start building fuel cells, if I remember right, in Michigan sometime around 2020 or 2021. And that's going to be a slow rollout. But nonetheless, that's what they're doing it. Let's see. I'm going to take two more questions. Then we're going to call it quits here because it's getting a little bit long. We love everything that's coming in. Georgian says, is Tesla F35-like drive module? What controls does the circuit board control? That's a good question. I think this has got a lot to do with the autopilot. Even though we devoted an entire hour-long show of After Hours with Sandy, we didn't get into every little detail because there's that many details to go. But I believe that had to do a lot with the self-driving aspect of the Model 3. Okay, and finally, let's see, we've got here, what can I read? Oh, here's a good one. Bob Naudo 123 says, has anyone heard more info about Ford's electric SUV called the Mach 1? I've seen it. I can't talk about it. I'm under embargo, as is other members of the media who saw the thing too. But you essentially got it right. I mean, they have talked about that. It is going to be an SUV. Inspired by the Mustang, hence the name Mach 1. It's going to be all electric. I believe it's going to be out in about 2 years' time. And when they let me, I'll tell you more about it. But anyway, folks, I'm going to wrap up now. We're going to try doing this about once a week where I'll go live, take your questions. I'll come up with a topic. We'll invite yours. And thanks for tuning in. And don't forget, coming up just a little while from now, less than an hour, Autoline Daily will be out for the day. Hope you watch that one too. Thank you.